So what a beautiful entree to my talk this morning, pure imagination, thinking of love and of beauty. And I was reading this morning about children and how children are, I was interpreting what was being said about children being so playful and imaginative, and how we lose that as we as we move into adulthood. Don Miguel Ruiz called it being civilized versus being pure and free. And really, my interpretation of that is really being close to God, right? And as we become more civilized and we learn how to conform to society's mores and the rules and do this and don't do that, we get further away from our essential nature because we're so busy following the structure of living in society. And it's really a full-time job figuring out how to do that, even as an adult, I think. For me it is anyway. But children, especially young children, don't have that structure, right? They're just free and they're really close to God. So, I was thinking about that Friday night during the concert, because there was so much joy that we were expressing and so much love that we were feeling with each other, and we were dancing and we were playing, and all of our musicians were there except for Jan. She couldn't be there, but everyone else was there. It's 7 musicians there, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I was thinking about the love that was being expressed, and that's why I chose the reading today, because Rupert Spira, he talks about consciousness, which is really awareness. It's our connection with the truth of our inner being, right? We call that God, or presence, spirit. And he says that there are 2 ways to be in direct connection with the truth of our being. And one way is through love, and the other way is through our experience of beauty. And love is an internal experience, and we can do that through devotion. We can do that, right? Prayer, where we're really expressing devotion to that one presence that is the truth of our being, right? Especially when we recognize that God is not external to us, that there is only one being and everything is God, right? God is not up there in the sky orchestrating things like a puppeteer. God is you, right? And me. Yeah, thank you. And I see the God in you, and it's the same God that's in me, right? It's that pure presence. And so when we express love with each other, and Rupert Spira was explaining that, we're connecting heart to heart, right? And we're experiencing that oneness. That's why we love to be in joy and have fun with each other and go to concerts, right? And play and hug and dance together, because we're experiencing the divine. It's really what we're experiencing. We think we're experiencing each other, but we're really experiencing the divine, because everything is God, right? There's no separation. So that's one way that we can experience the divine. And prayer, meditation, contemplation. There are many spiritual practices that we can engage in to experience that one presence. We can also just be. Once we do spiritual practices, at least this has been my experience, once I've done spiritual practices for a number of years, I start just feeling like I can be. I can remember to be that presence. If I'm in a place where maybe I'm feeling some emotional turmoil or some anxiety or some discomfort, something in me, when I'm really able to be present, something in me reminds me that, yes, I can remember the truth of my being, and I can just settle into that inner awareness. And this is who I am, and there is nothing else, and all is well. Then I know all is well, and I don't need to worry about whatever is happening around me, because, as we say here in religious science, all is in perfection. It all works out for good. And we do know that. We know that intellectually, but when we have the experience of it, when we can just be and go with the flow of the moment, we feel it and we know it, and that's a direct experience. So the external way, according to Rupert Spira, to know the divine presence is through the experience of beauty, and we all have that experience. Most of us love to walk in nature, right? You know, to be in a park, to sit next to a tree, or to walk through a forest, be with animals, the pets in our home. Even when we're driving them to Colorado, right? Like Ginger did a few weeks ago, drove pets to Colorado. We love our animals. We love nature. Friend Joanne over here spends most of her life in nature, traveling all around the country, right? Experiencing people and trees and flowers and beauty. We all do that, right? That's an external way to know the divine. And I've been thinking a lot about creativity lately. It really started in July when I went to the light gathering shaman event that some of us here had attended, and I became aware of how many artists are in my life. And Ginger, of course, is one. I know many, many artists are in this community right here. And I've really been paying attention to what they're doing and what the effect of what they're doing is on me and on everyone around us. And I was thinking about that Friday night at the concert, how all of our musicians were really expressing the divine coming through themselves, and many of them were singing their own creative works, right? Every one of those musicians is also a songwriter. So they're expressing the divine, and it's coming forth from within them, and we are experiencing it. And of course, they are experiencing our experience of it. It's all one, right? And it just flows. That is a divine experience. And when we're really sitting in the energy of that, it's an exhilarating, exultant experience of God. So in terms of creativity, how do we tap into our own creativity, right? We're all creative, whether we think we are or not. And we think of creativity as being something that artists do, the artists in our culture, the visual artists, the painters, the musical artists. We think they're all really special. They have a special talent, and yes, they do. But we often think that they have something we don't have. And we all have creativity. And where does that come from? And if you listen carefully to what Rupert Spira was saying, he was saying that it comes from beyond us. It's a process when we tap into the divine that it flows through us. So how do we do that? I'm retired. I'm not retired now because I'm back working again as a minister, but I had another life where I had a regular job, and I used to go into Philadelphia or into New York, and I actually worked. And, in an office and did certain things. And there was a lot of stress and anxiety that went along with it, just because I had goals. I had financial goals to my job, and I had outcomes I needed to produce, and they were stretch goals, and there was a lot of push and pull to demonstrate to the board and to demonstrate to the senior staff outcomes and achievements. So I'd like to be able to say that, well, if we're really relaxed, we can just be open to Spirit, and Spirit can flow through us. But my experience has been that even in the midst of anxiety and high stress and just turmoil, a lot of turmoil going around us in our external world, we can still be creative, because I have experienced that myself. And I used to be a writer in my job, and I used to write grants. And I used to raise a lot of money, millions of dollars, just writing grants. And somebody said to me within the last few months, "Oh, you were a technical writer." And I'm like, "What? Nobody ever said that before." Because I wasn't a technical writer. And what I did was a very creative process. And that's why Rupert Spira's reading really touched me, because so many times in my life, that's what I've done, is I've tapped into the divine and something came through me, and I can't even say it's me. It's something from beyond me, but I was open to it. You know, we auctioned off, or Paul gave a little raffle, and one of our books was open at the top, and it was a story about the founder of religious science, Ernest Holmes, and how he was open at the top. And the meaning of that was that his brother Fenwick actually said this about him, that he was open to spirit. So he created religious science, not as an organization and not as a religion, because that's not what he wanted, but he distilled the essence of spiritual truths that are universal, that are found in every faith and every spiritual tradition, right? And today we call that science of mind, and he wrote a book about it called Science of Mind, but it's really universal. You can find it in the Upanishads, you can find it in the Bible, you can find it in the Quran. You know, wherever you look in the real spiritual sacred texts, these truths are there, expressed differently, but they're there. And he pulled it together into an essence that we can understand today without needing to go to all these texts, and we can understand it and use it as a guide for how we live our lives. But getting back to me and working in Philadelphia, how did I create? You think about a grant being something, well, you just put a project, you describe it on paper, and you send it to a funder, and they decide whether they're going to fund it or not. But for me, it didn't work that way, and the people that were really good at writing grants were people that could influence the people reading the grants and inspire them to support the project or the cause. And I was able to do that very well because I myself was inspired. And what inspired me? One of the things I love to do, if I really like something, I like to read, and I like to study, and I like to learn. So I had a job. I started out at the Bronx Zoo, and I worked there for 5 years, and then I came here to Philadelphia, and I worked with conservation organizations. All of these places had big conservation arms. And I loved working with the scientists because I came from a scientific background, and I was very, very passionate about saving wildlife, saving animals, because that's what I love. I love nature. I really care about the earth and about the environment. And for me, it was almost a spiritual cause at the time for me. It was my passion in my work. So I had the opportunity to spend most of my time with conservationists who were working all around the world, in Indonesia, Sulawesi, Madagascar, so many places in South America, and to really delve into their research and understand what they were doing and why they were doing it, and what were the issues, what were the conflicts with the local people, and what were the issues for the local people with the wildlife, elephants trampling on their farms and things like that. So how do you bring all this together and create a program that's going to serve the local people, also serve nature, right? So I was really passionate about that, and I would spend hours and hours and hours reading about all of these projects, meeting with the conservation biologists, and I was truly inspired. That's what I loved about my job. And then it was time for me to sit down and write a grant proposal. Honestly, that was the easiest part of my job, because I spent so much time reading and studying and thinking and learning and sleeping on it too. Just, sort of, I think of it as like a fermentation kind of period, that when it was time to write the proposal, it just flowed out. And I did not have a picture of how it should have looked. It just was there. It just formed almost beyond my mind. And that was a process that I followed for years and years and years, and I never thought about it. It's just what I did. So that's a good example of the creative process. I was listening to Paul McCartney on Sirius Radio, speaking about his process, how he writes a song, right? And he's one of the, in my mind, one of the greatest songwriters of our time, certainly. And he said, you know, a little melody just pops into my head. And I start, you know, on the keyboard, I just play it, or I might strum it on the drum, and then it starts forming, and it starts developing and expanding, and then, then words start coming, and it just becomes a thing, but it's not something I ever thought about. It just happens, and that is the creative process. That's what I have experienced. Another way that can happen is through dreams. When I was taking organic chemistry as an undergrad, it's a very rigorous program of study, I can tell you, and I remember very little about it now, but one thing I do remember is a story about a man named Friedrich Kekulé, and he discovered the structure of the benzene ring. And apparently that was a very important insight that changed our world, because benzene is, it's really the foundation of so many of the chemicals that we use today. It doesn't sound like a good thing because we're so sensitive about chemicals today, but the life we lead today, and many of the products that we have, including plastics, really come from that insight. Now, I'm sure he wasn't alone in that, but he was the one that actually elucidated it, and it came to him in a dream. He had a dream one night of a serpent, a snake, and it was in a circle. And when he woke up, he realized that that was the structure of the benzene ring. It was circular, it was not linear. And that was a very transformational insight into the field of organic chemistry at that time. So dreams are another way that we tap into our intuition and into our creativity. Another way that we can do it is by just doing it. We all know Mary Law, right? Everybody loves Mary. You know what Mary's doing right now? Has anyone seen Mary on Facebook this week? She's in a 30-day challenge, right? And she's painting a picture every day for 30 days. And it's just beautiful to watch her. And she's got all these different topics and subjects that she's setting up, and she's doing it for 30 days. And I think I've heard Mary say recently that she's been so busy doing so many other things in her life, including taking care of her grandchildren for the past few years, that she's gotten away from her art. And there she is back in it again. So just having a practice and being part of, a group activity that people are doing it. It's a solitary activity, creating a piece of art, right? But it's a discipline. We don't always have to do it alone. We can do it in concert with each other, even if it's a solitary activity. But I watch what Mary is producing, and I know it's divine, because yesterday she was at the shore. She was down the shore, and she was at the beach, and you saw the picture of the beach, the photograph, and what she created was just so beautiful. I could see that the vista before her inspired her. However, what she created was something completely unique. It was beauty. That's the only thing I can say about it. It was beauty. So what do I want to say to you today? That we're all artists. We're all artists in our lives. And it doesn't have to be that we're painters and we create a painting. It doesn't have to be that we're musicians or understand music. We might be carpenters, and we might be really good, like Reverend Paul here. He's a master carpenter, right? And we could be really great with technology. and just have insights into how we can apply it to improve systems. We experience that a lot here at CCL. Various people help us with our technologies. It could be business, creating Facebook or Amazon. I mean, those were inspirations, right? So we're all artists in our lives. And so my message to you is really to just live an inspired life. And when we do that, we're connecting with God. Whether we're viewing art, and by art I mean the greater art, not just works of art, but also somebody saying, if we do this with our technology, that can happen, and this solves our problem. To me, that's a work of art, all right, because it's an inspiration. So we all do that in our lives. So just be present. Be present to the divine within. Be open at the top. Remember that we experience the divine through love, right? So we love each other, and that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here with each other. That's why we're together Friday night. And that we also experience the divine through our creations and through our experience of beauty, whether it comes from within us or whether it's shared from others. Because remember, we're all the one mind, right? We're all the one divine mind. So in the end, just be. Thank you.